I mean, bro, it's just nasty ass plays by the Phoenix Mercury, man. This is nasty work by the Phoenix Mercury. They went out there and targeted Caitlin Clark. They injured her. That's just what it is, bro. That's just what it is, man. This team is dirty as hell. And now you would have thought the WNBA would have been prepared, especially after what happened last game. But the WNBA clearly not prepared. They didn't do anything to stop this goon stuff, this thuggery from happening in the second game. Now, when we get to the actual game, Caitlin Clark was off to a blazing hot start, man. Caitlin Clark was 5 of 9. She had 19 points and 8 assists. She was going to have another 30 and 10 game. For whatever reason, when Caitlin Clark went out of the game, she had the third most shot attempts on the team. Kelsey Mitchell has shot more, and Aaliyah Boston. None of these players need to be shooting more than Caitlin.
Is it really possible for a professional sports league to endure mistreating the one person who has contributed to its whole success? No one in authority of the WNBA appears to be willing to respond to that question at this time. Because something that ought to have been the simplest choice in sports occurred on a basketball court in late June. Rather, it became a tangle of missed calls, dubious bans, and a commissioner who doesn't seem to be as protective of her star as she is irritated by it. By the conclusion of this, you'll see why players are speaking out in public, even if it means facing fines, to confirm what everyone has already known. Stay tuned. To ensure you don't miss the next breakdown, please click the subscribe button and ring the bell before we begin. There are layers to this story, and the deeper you go, the messier it becomes, I promise.
This stuff. Ridiculous, man. Alyssa Thomas is dirty. Look at the dirty plays. Look at this angle where she puts her knee directly on her groin. She was out to injure Caitlin Clark. Look at this.
Streaking to the basket.
Look at her. The ball is all the way over there. Why is your knee in her groin? What are you doing? What are you doing, Alyssa Thomas? The ball isn't even over there. Look at where the ball is, guys. Look at where the ball is. Why are you going through putting your knee on her groin? The ball is clearly behind you. Caitlin Clark don't got the ball. What are you doing? This is targeting. This is an attack. The WNBA needs to step in and do something about Alyssa Thomas and her goon squad brutally, viciously attacking Caitlin Clark.
Since the video conveys a story that words cannot adequately convey, let's start with what actually transpired on the court. Caitlin Clark drove toward the basket during a Phoenix Mercury versus Indiana Fever game, just as she has done hundreds of times throughout her career. It wasn't just foul that happened when Alyssa Thomas met her there. There were two different acts. First, while Clark was already on the ground, a closed hand made contact with her throat. Then, almost instantly, she was hit in the groin by a knee. Two distinct contact moments. Two distinct locations on her body. Neither was a coincidence. And it all took place right in front of an official who was close enough to see every moment of it.
The WNBA before or watching. Dave Portnoy never talked about the WNBA. Suddenly he's tweeting about the WNBA. She's an unbelievable shooter. She's an incredible competitor, all those things. And they're going out of their way to break her and ruin her. It's not just the punch and the little extra dig and the kick. There was another play, I think maybe it was the same game, where one of the defenders did what's the most dangerous thing you can do in basketball, which is when someone shoots, that you just walk close enough to them so that they hopefully step on your foot, in which case they're going to either break an ankle or maybe, break it, snap an Achilles or something. And this is happening time and time again. And I would say that if the WNBA will not do anything about this, which it seems that they will not, that Caitlin, not whatever I called her before, not the one from CNN, that Caitlin Clark should leave the league and she should start her own league. And I know that sounds completely insane. And I know she'd probably,
A one-game punishment was the league's response. Take a moment to consider that. One game was lost due to a closed fist hit to the throat and a knee to the crotch that were both captured on camera from various perspectives. To put that in perspective, Draymond Green received the same length of penalty from the NBA for stepping on an opponent's chest during a playoff game. The basketball community then spent weeks berating the NBA for being overly forgiving. After considering that criticism, the WNBA came up with the exact same figure. However, this story's most bizarre aspect isn't even the suspension. This brings us to referee Jenna Schroeder, who witnessed the entire episode from a distance of less than 10 feet. Her head is shown on broadcast footage facing the exact location of the contact. She did not have her eyes on the scoreboard. A new area of the court did not divert her attention. She was positioned such that she could see exactly what happened. Nevertheless, no real-time call was placed. No whistle, no flag. Nothing that suggested a play needed to be addressed right away.
However, what is happening with the WNBA right now is they're saying, we're going to just take our Michael Jordan. She has completely changed the economics of the game, the visibility of the game. She has inspired so many young girls. She's got guys that had never watched the WNBA before or watching. Dave Portnoy never talked about the WNBA. Suddenly he's tweeting about the WNBA. She's an unbelievable shooter. She's an incredible competitor, all those things. And they're going out of their way to break her and ruin her. It's not just the punch and the little extra dig and the kick. There was another play, I think maybe it was the same game, where one of the defenders did what's the most dangerous thing you can do in basketball, which is when someone shoots, that you just walk close enough to them so that they hopefully step on your foot, in which case they're going to either...
The league seems to want supporters to believe that a skilled expert, whose sole responsibility is to monitor physical contact during hectic scenes, just failed to notice it. The difficulty with that explanation, though, is that it raises serious concerns about officiating standards around the league if a referee standing that close actually missed two distinct violent acts. Furthermore, if she witnessed it but decided not to report it, that presents a completely new and possibly more concerning issue of what is acceptable on the court.
Brutally, viciously attacking Caitlin Clark. What are y'all gonna do about it? What are y'all gonna do about it? This is the biggest star to ever come in this league, and you're letting this thuggery go on. You're letting people viciously target her. It's ridiculous, man. Alyssa Thomas is a joke. Alyssa Thomas is disgusting. This is nasty. This is nasty. This deserves a suspension. Damn a fine, damn a technical. This should have been a flagrant 2. She should have been ejected for this. She should have been ejected. Nasty. Look at all this dirty stuff they're doing. Landing zone fouls. Landing zone fouls. This is the play where Caitlin Clark appears to have hurt her back.
Sophie Cunningham enters the conversation at this point, and it's important to watch how she responds. When this subject comes up, pay attention to her body language. This is not a light-hearted annoyance. This person saw something so obvious that she was prepared to face a fine in order to discuss it in public. She also avoided using ambiguous language. She made references to particular plays from particular games. Kate Martin committed a foul that was never reviewed. Clark was given a technical foul for an action taken by another player. Cunningham was not creating a story out of thin air. She was pointing to a trend that had been developing for months, one that many fans had observed but were unable to confirm until an official in the league did. Since none of this is truly novel for professional basketball, this is where things get historically interesting. The Detroit Pistons created a defensive plan in the 1980s with the express purpose of physically taxing Michael Jordan until he was unable to play. For a period, it was effective and became known as the Jordan Rules. Every time Detroit played Chicago, Jordan was beaten, but eventually the NBA intervened. The criteria for officiating evolved. When physical play went too far, there were actual repercussions. Why? Because league administrators saw that Jordan's success was closely linked to the league's success. It was not only fair to protect him, it was also wise business. In the present day, the WNBA is facing a nearly same circumstance.
We have a generational talent and a WNBA superstar who had 2 cheap shots right there that weren't called. And I just say again, absolutely unacceptable.
A hand to the neck and it's...
And here's the thing, it happens every day, pretty much every single game. And the women of the WNBA, and there's female broadcasters out there who don't even hide their disdain.
In just her rookie season, Caitlin Clark attracted more than 3 million viewers to WNBA broadcasts. Sales of merchandise associated with her increased by about 170%. Both at home and away from home, arenas that had never sold out for women's basketball suddenly filled up. However, the league seems to be doing the opposite rather than modifying officiating standards to safeguard that kind of asset. Like the NBA did decades ago, Commissioner Kathy Engelbert has had every chance to draw a clear line. That line hasn't appeared yet. This leads to something that caused many fans to reconsider. The WNBA unveiled a poster in late June to mark the league's 30th anniversary. It was intended to showcase the sport's current stars as well as its past. Not on it was Caitlin Clark, who had just finished what may have been the most influential rookie season in the league's history. Sophie Cunningham, who is not regarded as a superstar but is a respected role player by her own admission, was highlighted. The optics were strange enough on her own, but then people started digging into the details, and it got stranger. Officially licensed Caitlin Clark merchandise is sold by the same company that created that poster. Includes jewelry bearing her image. This essentially disproves the claim that image rights were the problem. They were allowed to use her image on a poster if they were allowed to use it on a necklace. So why omit the player who may have contributed more to the league's prominence in a single season than nearly everyone else in its history? Commissioner Engelbert wants credit for the league's growth to go to larger expansion efforts rather than one 22-year-old rookie, according to a theory that has gained traction and that Sophie Cunningham herself has alluded to. That theory hasn't exactly been refuted by Engelbert's own public remarks either. She has consistently minimized Clark's contribution, portraying the increase in viewership as more of a result of the league's overall growth. It's an unusual stance for a commissioner to take when the data points fairly clearly in one direction. Let's shift back to the court now, because the officiating inconsistencies it didn't stop with the Thomas incident. During a separate sequence, Clark was fouled, and following the whistle, another player escalated the situation further. Despite that, Clark was the one who ended up with a technical foul. Confused about the fairness of that call, Sophie Cunningham approached the referee to ask a simple, calm question. Why wasn't the player who escalated things given a technical as well? Her reward for asking that question, delivered without shouting, without foul language, and without physical contact, was a technical foul of her own. The trigger, according to the officiating explanation, was a pointing gesture. A hand motion that coaches and players used constantly throughout every single game suddenly became punishable in that moment. This is the exact inconsistency Cunningham has been trying to highlight. The same set of officials who allowed a closed fist strike to go unpunished in real time were handing out technical fouls for pointing. Reactions to all of this started pouring in from around the basketball world, and one voice in particular carried extra underweight. Lisa Leslie, a 3-time MVP, 4-time Olympic gold medalist, and Hall of Famer, weighed in on the situation. Her perspective matters here because she's not a random commentator chasing headlines. She played the game at the highest level for years and understands the difference between hard-nosed competition and something crossing a line. Leslie made an important distinction in her comments. The game has always been physical. Nobody's suggesting that competitiveness should be removed from basketball, but there used to be an understanding among players. You didn't try to sincerely injure someone. And if you accidentally caught an opponent with an elbow or a hard foul, you admitted it. You helped them up. You showed it wasn't deliberate. None of that happened here. There was no recognition, no sign of accountability, nothing that suggested contrition. According to Leslie, the absence of accountability is exactly what distinguishes a hard foul from something considerably more worrisome, and her bigger message stretched beyond just this one incident. Every player in the league, not just the known stars, deserves the same baseline of physical safety on the floor. Now, let's talk about how the Mercury organization responded, because their answer tells you a lot about priorities within that locker room. Rather than addressing the severity of what happened, players began posting supporting messages on social media, presenting Alyssa Thomasaw as the one being unfairly attacked rather than the player who was physically struck. Supporting a teammate through a borderline call is customary in professional sports. But this wasn't a questionable call. It was two separate, clearly apparent instances of touch filmed from multiple camera angles. Making matters worse, head coach Nate Tiefenthaler addressed the event directly during a press conference, and rather than acknowledging the seriousness of what transpired, he pushed back on the labeling of it as a cheap shot altogether. He didn't dispute that the encounter happened. All he said was that it shouldn't be called what fans and commentators were calling it. He also made a comment indicating people shouldn't rely too largely on social media snippets when making conclusions, even though the complete, uncut broadcast clip had already been viewed by millions of people. It's a subtle strategy that works. Instead of addressing the issue head-on, the organization began to minimize and reframe what everyone had previously witnessed firsthand. When you put all these parts together, a pattern that is difficult to deny begins to show. Take a step back and consider the big picture. The first was the officiating error. A referee positioned close enough to have a clear view of the place somehow failed to make a call on two distinct violent actions. The league's answer was a punishment so brief that it was immediately compared to one of the most contentious disciplinary rulings in recent NBA history. Subsequently, the commissioner persisted in downplaying Clark's personal contribution. The league's expansion both financially and culturally, which resulted in her unexpected withdrawal from a significant marketing campaign. Lastly, the Mercury's organizational response to a blatant pattern of excessively violent behavior is to safeguard the player's public image. Additionally, none of this exists in a vacuum. A different player was the target of an equally aggressive play earlier in the season in a different game. This is not a tale of a single horrible evening or a single emotional error of judgment. This is a tale of a pattern that has been let to persist because the gravity of the actions has never been matched by the consequences. Here's why that's important for reasons other than this particular season. There's a surge of highly hyped collegiate talent poised to enter the league in the coming years. These players have been keeping a close eye on how the whole thing has developed. They've witnessed a rookie who smashed attendance and viewing records get struck, kneed, and physically targeted during her debut season. They observed officials failing to act in clear-cut circumstances. They have witnessed the league's most commercially important player being left out of its own advertising materials. Would you be excited to take center stage if you were one of those inbound prospects? Or would the knowledge that the league might not support you in a physical altercation make you reluctant to accept visibility? That's the true danger here, and it extends well beyond a single suspension or missed call. Right now, the WNBA has the most valuable commercial asset in its history. The league's attendance figures have increased dramatically. Quick deals have increased. Sales of merchandise have surged. The attention that Caitlin Clark has brought to the sport is directly responsible for all of that momentum. And the present strategy appears to be treating her more like a problem to handle than an asset worth protecting, rather than preserving that momentum the way other leagues have done in comparable circumstances throughout sports history. None of Sophie Cunningham's statements had to be made in public. By doing this, she ran the possibility of being disciplined by the league and facing backlash from those who support the status quo. However, she said it nonetheless since quiet eventually begins to feel like complicity. Additionally, it tells you nearly everything you need to know about the current state of leadership inside the organization when a role player feels obligated to publicly defend the league's biggest star because the people who are supposed to do it won't. What does this mean for the future, then? The suspension is already in effect. The debate around the advertisement has already spread on social media. The missed calls and the technical foul have already occurred and cannot be reversed. Anyone who truly cares about this league's future should be concerned by the fact that the pattern hasn't been addressed. Because this won't be the last time something like happens if nothing changes. Before the following headline, it will just be the most current one. Furthermore, whether Caitlin Clark can tolerate physical play is not a matter worth pondering. She has consistently shown that she is capable. What do you think is actually going on behind the scenes here? The real question is whether the people in charge of this league truly want to protect what is making it more successful than it has ever been, or whether ego, resentment, and inconsistent leadership will ultimately cost the WNBA the very momentum it fought so hard to build. This discussion is far from ended, so please share your ideas in the comments section below. There will be a lot more to uncover in the upcoming weeks, so make sure you're subscribed and have notifications enabled if you want to keep up with how this story develops. We appreciate your viewing and hope to see you in the future one.